There we go, setting up your meeting off Facebook Live.
We're now streaming live.
Is that what it said your end, does it?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to come back on. There you go. Yep, we're live. Perfect. Just give it a few seconds for a few people to join, and we'll go from there. We'll just have a little chat. How have you been in the lockdown? How's work kind of progressed onto online?
It's surprising how I think the first couple of weeks you feel very surreal, and actually quickly you've got into a routine. It feels quite strangely normal now, working from home and doing everything via video call. I think it'll be obviously nice when you can get back in and see people face to face, but there's definitely a routine and a bit of a rhythm that people are into now.
I know there's actually some benefits, isn't there, to it? With the kind of comfort and sometimes you could get higher productivity. And there's research in stuff like that, isn't it?
It's given good opportunities to show other ways of working. So things like these sort of webinars and the way you can communicate with people. We've had webinars with sort of academy managers and different parts of the academy workforce, and you can just speak to so many more people rather than, if it's a face-to-face meeting, everybody's got to travel, and then you can only fit so many people in one meeting room. So it's been really good actually from that respect. Perfect.
So I've got a few people joined now. So welcome, guys. We're fortunate enough to have Neil Saunders here, Head of Youth at the Premier League. Just going to welcome Neil.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm just going to have a little kind of synopsis of your career for the guys that don't know really, and obviously jump in at any point. So you obviously joined Watford youth team. You're at Watford from 1992 to 2002, so a long time. So I'm guessing you joined quite young there. Then moved on to Barnet for one season. Then moved on to Team Bath, which for the younger generation you won't really know is a very, very successful university team. Had a great FA Cup run, if off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And promoted through various leagues. Then went back to the professional clubs at Exeter for 3 years, 2007 to 2010. Played for England futsal along the path, and then unfortunately retired in 2010 through a knee injury, which then led you to your path where you've gone today. Did I get anything wrong there, Neil?
No, it was good. You good whistle stop tour. Yeah, a few highs and lows along the way there, but yeah, been very fortunate with the sort of career I've had in football, and then post play, and I've been fortunate to be able to stay involved in the game, and specifically working with young players and trying to support them on their footballing journey, which is something that's easy to be passionate about, working with young people and seeing the sort of passion for the game that they have. So I've been, I think fortunate is the word I'd use to describe it.
Perfect. Obviously, you say fortunate, but behind the scenes and when you break things down, there's a lot of hard work and a lot of kind of challenges that come along the way, which you've got to overcome, which I think we'll touch on as we go through an interview. So, taking you back from your first start in football when you're really, really young, I don't know, it could be 6, 7 years old. What was your kind of route into grassroots football initially?
I had an older brother, so brother was 7 years older than me, and used to sort of take me into the garden or around to the local field, and normally would try and stick me in goal so he could take free kicks and penalties against me. But he sort of started my love of football, and from a really young age I was kicking the ball around and playing and going on the soccer schools and different activities. So from early, one of the first footballing memories is I went on a Martin Allen soccer school. Martin Allen, for the younger kids on the session today, that is a former West Ham player. So someone like a Mark Noble today running his own soccer school, and I got to attend that as a 6-year-old and just absolutely loved it, playing football every day. It was a residential one where you stayed for a few days during the school holidays, and it was just amazing to play football with your friends every day, and it definitely sort of started my love for the game. Yeah,
we had Jack Charlson ones around this way, and it was Yeah, they were special. They were great memories from them days. So did you have a natural progression into a grassroots team from there?
Yeah, I played for my local grassroots team, and actually my dad helped to sort of coach that, and very much with friends. And we played. I'm from Basildon originally, in Essex, and we played in the Echo League, which was inner city London league, and really high level of.
Was that the league that Beckham was famous for coming from?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so Senrab and Ridgeway Rovers, and who David Beckham played for. So we, in my age group, players like Jermaine Defoe, which some people would still, it's sort of the end of his career, but and lots of other players that went on to play professional football. So it was a good standard of football, and parallel to that, through the Martin Allen Soccer School, I got an introduction to West Ham. So from quite a young age, I was going to West Ham and training with them, sort of in the evenings. And I think that was although I was 7, 8, 9 at that point, we used to see Frank Lampard.
Yeah, for the young guys again, legendary academy set up at West Ham. Still a good academy, but it was widely known for producing some amazing talent.
Yeah, obviously over the years, so many players, and in recent seasons with Declan Rice and Jeremy Ngakia coming through and making their debuts, been they sort of continue that. But watching Frank Lampard, I remember he would be out before everyone else, even at sort of 13, 14, preparing for training, putting extra work in, and you could see that there was a sort of a real desire and appetite to work hard and to improve.
Yeah, brilliant. So did them attributes that you learned and you witnessed through Frank and other players at the West Ham kind of scene, do you think that kind of really helped you in terms of your grassroots football, that extra training, and then ultimately led to you kind of joining Watford?
Yeah, I think it all starts from loving the game and really enjoying playing. And I couldn't wait to go to training, whether that was for the grassroots team or with West Ham or with the academies, and trying to get better at things. I can remember one of the sessions was sort of throwing the ball up in the air and trying to, as the ball bounces, you try and turn and control it in one movement. And just such a simple thing, but trying to master the ball and trying to get better in all aspects of that sort of particular technical side of it, I really enjoyed, and trying to be as good as I could possibly be, and trying to take pleasure in learning and improving, really.
Brilliant. Really wise words. I wouldn't expect anything less, to be honest, from your current role, and obviously walk through the professional career as well. So what age did you join Watford? What age did you actually kind of?
So I was 14 when I joined Watford. So I'd been at West Ham and Leyton Orient, sort of centres of excellence and academies, and then got the opportunity to go and trial with Watford, and they had a really good setup, very well run and professional. And I went there at 14 and absolutely loved it. The way the coaching was structured, again, to sort of all set up for you to develop as a young player, and then was there for a couple of years and signed my scholarship, which meant moving away from home at 16, which, to be honest, from my perspective, I couldn't wait to go and be there and train and play football, and pursue your dream, really. I think for my mum and for parents, seeing their sort of 16-year-old son leave home was probably more difficult for them than it was for me. But yeah, that was the start of an enjoyable journey, albeit there were some tough challenges along the way. It was I was doing what I always dreamed of doing, really.
Yeah, definitely. So I think Neil's already touched on mastering certain skills and technical attributes, but also the hunger there to leave home at 16 years old, and that desire to want to be better, and probably, I'm guessing, train full time, be around in and around first team, and the broad bigger picture of what it meant for your path, that just outweighed all any kind of negatives, that you were already set on your path and focused to what you wanted to achieve.
Yeah, and I think it's the choices that you make at that stage or any point in your life are important, aren't they? They dictate what path that you led down, and I guess football was my sort of number one priority at that stage. So I was doing everything I could to pursue that dream, but also at the same time, we I was attending college a couple of days a week, as well as training full time, and making sure that I was, getting my education, and whether that would support me in my football career, or if it didn't continue, I would be able to use that to sort of hopefully stay in football and take up one of the roles, which at that time, I guess it was predominantly coaching roles, but now we're really fortunate, and the younger generation are fortunate. There are just so many roles that you can take in football, not just coaching, but lots of other areas as well.
Perfect. So for the guys that are just joining, we've got Neil Saunders here, who's head of youth at the Premier League because we just had quite a few people join. Just so you know, we're just covering his kind of early playing days at the moment. He's just joined Watford. So let's fast forward a bit. So you were playing quite regularly in the reserves, weren't you? I think you kind of won the league and different kind of things, and the team was really, really strong. And what obviously there was a step up to the first team from the reserves. What did you make that step up, or if you didn't make that step up, what kind of challenges do you feel you come across?
Yeah, I think we had a really good youth team, and we progressed through to the reserves. Working with Ray Lewington was our reserve coach, who's still assistant manager to Roy Hodgson at Crystal Palace. So
Yeah.
shows the sort of calibre of coach that he was. I don't know if you've come across him, Mark, with you.
Yeah, no, I heard great things about him. Yeah.
And I had a lot of good coaches. I guess when I used to go and train with the first team up to the reserve, I think one of the things I noticed was the speed and the intensity of training. Even though you're playing in the reserves and everybody was a good footballer and it was a high level, that step into the first team in the men's football was still a considerable step up. We had some really good players. At that time, Gianluca Vialli was the manager. They had a lot of really senior professionals in the team, and I wasn't quite ready at that sort of age, 19, either physically or maybe technically to make the breakthrough into the first team. But it was a really good squad. Actually, interesting. Ashley Young was a couple of years below me in the youth team, and Ashley managed to make that step up. So that was the sort of, I guess, caliber of person that you're competing with. And Ashley's gone on to play for England and win the Premier League and play in Serie A now. So I guess that gives me a good excuse why I couldn't break in. I
remember back then Watford was a very, very talented youth team in reserves, and sometimes them kind of challenges is just put in front of you that there is senior players, and as a youngster you have to kind of go above and beyond, and especially the players that Gian Vialli was bringing in, ex-Chelsea boys, kind of guys that won Champions League, Premier Leagues, star-studded lineup, and Watford were flying at that period. So from that point, can we touch on when you were picked up by West Ham, Leyton Orient, and Watford? What attributes, thinking back, not now in hindsight, but at that point, what attributes do you think them clubs saw in you initially to be sign your YTS or your scholarship? Now, what do you feel?
That's a good question. I guess feedback that I had from coaches that technically I was competent and able to control the ball with both feet and a range of passing, both short and long. I think that's something that is even more important now. The game is much more technically based and more possession based. I think for young players, really working on their technical skills. But then I think I would like to think that I had a really good attitude towards training and games, and would always try and give 100% for the team. And I think that probably was a characteristic of mine, that I really understood and bought into the fact that football is a team game, and trying to work and support your teammates will ultimately help you to achieve success for yourself, if that's through the team winning. And it's much easier to perform better as an individual within a successful team. So, really buying into that part of it, where you're supporting your teammates and encouraging to help you and the others improve.
Perfect. And then we'll fast forward to Team Bath. So obviously university football alongside that. So we had a chat before, didn't we, about the Loughborough, the grounds, and where the kids now play a lot of the Premier League tournaments there, and the feedback as the place is just amazing in terms of a sporting venue. And you were fortunate enough to obviously probably the one that hooked it up. How was Team Bath, and how did that come about? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, it's just an interesting one, and I think universities, because of the sort of finances and the type of provision they're providing, their facilities typically are really, really impressive. I had a bad injury at Watford and didn't quite get back and didn't get offered a new contract at that time. So I was considering my opportunities and where I would go after that. Team Bath was basically linked to Bath University, and I had an offer to go and play football with them. And it's a bit like you see if you watch, Netflix, where the American footballers, they go to university and they play for the college team at the same time. That was very similar model with the football team here at Bath. So I decided that actually I guess the injury was a bit of an eye opener about how fragile football could be, and took the opportunity to go and get a degree there at Bath and also continue to train full time. And I guess I saw it as an opportunity to get a degree, but also if I keep playing football, then there's a chance down the line that I could maybe get an opportunity to go back into playing professionally, because that was still obviously the dream. And I think that's worth sharing with everyone, that I'm from a working class background, and through school, the university pathway wasn't something that necessarily I thought was something that would be open to me. But again, through football, opportunities, the opportunity became available, and thankfully I had sort of continued with my, did quite well in my GCSEs, and then I did a BTEC in sports science, and that was enough to get me onto a foundation degree initially, and then onto the full degree afterwards. And it's quite funny, when I went back into football afterwards, the boys would joke, that I must be really intelligent because I went to university, and sort of I think because that hasn't necessarily been a pathway that footballers would take, but I sort of said to them, there's definitely no difference to those boys, and it was an opportunity that came to me, and thankfully I took it, and it's definitely one of the best decisions I think I've made in my journey.
Yeah, great words, and we could probably touch on what you briefly touched on earlier there, that even when I was in a youth team and as a professional, it was encouraged the whole time to kind of how important your education was. I studied. I managed to get like an advanced GMVQ in business. I've already done a GCSE, and I actually went on to start a degree in sports science at Roehampton, which unfortunately I was in the first team at the time, so I ended up finishing 1 year. It's so important because the percentage of players who make it professional, and this isn't against obviously trying to everyone to achieve their dream, but it's so small, but there's so many other opportunities in the game. It might be like a sports scientist, a coach, a sports journalist. I'm sort of sure you can share a bit more on that, Neil.
Yeah, I mean, when I started the Premier League 10 years ago, there were, I think, about 250 full-time coaches working in the academies, and that's increased to about 800 now. So that's almost trebled. And then there are so many more roles, whether that be sports scientists. Well, I guess how I try to position it is, what's your number one career choice, and it's probably being a football player. For lots of us, and it certainly was for me. But if somebody says, right, well, if you couldn't do that, would you want, if your dream was to play for Liverpool, if you couldn't do that, would you want to be helping to coach Liverpool's team and be at Anfield and be part of that? And the answer would probably be yes. Or actually, would you want to be part of the fitness team there, or the strength and conditioning, helping the players to improve their fitness and their strength and be a part of the team from that side? Or supporting the players off the pitch? In the academies, we have player care positions that are helping players to develop skills away from the pitch, so sort of more life skills. So whatever the interest you have, if you can pretty much combine that with football, and there's a role in football that you can pursue. So I think that's that's great now that there's so many more opportunities for people to pursue and try and access football as a career, not just in playing, but in other areas.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of misconception that just because you might not make it in the Premier League, you might be a great footballer at a lower league, which is completely fine. And also that these roles, you're still involved in the game that you love, and you can go to a very high level. You can obviously say you're a kit man. You could be a kit man for a Premier League team. You're still experiencing that life and that dream that you still had, just in a different capacity. So I think education is really important. Obviously, help Neil as well to transform himself once he kind of got the injury. So from there, you kind of you retired. Obviously there's a spell at Exeter where you did really well. And then did the knee injury get just a bit too much again? And
yeah, I'd offered to go to Exeter, and it was sort of heart probably ruling my head. I've always wanted to play in the league, and I hadn't done to that point. So I went to Exeter and had 3 great years for the club. I was sort of still struggled with some injuries, had a few more operations on my knee, and it got to the sort of stage where it wasn't going to be possible to keep going with the football career. And I guess I was 27 at the time, and I felt that I was still young enough to pursue a career outside of football, and that was the sort of right time to do so. And had sort of spoke with different mentors or different people that I valued their opinion to sort of consider different options. And there was a small short-term contract available at the Premier League in their youth department, and managed to win that sort of short-term contract, if you like. And yeah, 10 years later, I'm still at the Premier League, and have been really fortunate that I've been able to sort of work my way through the department. And I was lucky that I started at a time when there was a lot of investment or renewed investment around youth development and how clubs develop their young players. And I'm fortunate to be a part of that journey with clubs, and seeing a lot of our top Premier League players come through and develop over the years.
Perfect. So I know, speaking to you and Mark as well, that both of you been through various roles, which I think is a great journey, that you have actually almost served an apprenticeship in so many different roles to now form your knowledge and your opinions and the way you work and see things now. So how does your what does your current role entail as head of youth for the Premier League?
Yeah, so in my current role, I'm responsible for sort of all youth development matters across the Premier League. So working with all of the 20 Premier League clubs, whether that's Manchester United or Southampton or Bournemouth, we will work with those clubs and support them in their delivery of their academy programs. Trying to develop their young players. One of the areas that, as you know, Mark, that we support clubs in is the delivery of all of the games program and the tournaments and competitions that the young boys take part in. And that's something that's really grown and expanded over the years. And I think seeing the quality of players coming through each year it's incredible, the skills and the sort of how high quality the young players in our academies are. So it's been a real pleasure to be a part of.
Perfect. And I'm a bit of a statistician, and I love kind of studies around football and crossover benefits. I know you go on kind of field studies to other countries. You study other academies, other leagues, other first teams. From studying all the kind of clubs around the world, and what would you say the kind of key things are that you try to bring back and help the Premier League and the way that's coaching happen, and the way that you portray things to the clubs?
I think some examples of our best academies is where it's a long-term plan. So some of the players that enter our academy, so Phil Foden at Man City, Phil would have started with Man City at 9 years of age, and he's not going to make his Premier League debut until he's 19 years of age. So 10 years worth of development there. So it's clubs recognising that the player is a young boy and he's 9 years of age, and making sure that the training is tailored, is suitable for each phase of his development. So at 9, it doesn't look like the first team training. It looks more specific for a 9-year-old and how children learn at those ages. And then identifying players that have the potential to go on and play Premier League football. It's not necessarily trying to have the best team at under 9. It's trying to identify players that have the potential to go on and be first team players. And so that isn't just the biggest boys at the young age. It may be someone that's showing different attributes. So it's not it's not one size fits all. And then it's being patient along the journey. So again, it's a 10-year process, and development isn't a straight path upwards. Boys and will have different phases of their development. It will be sort of some ups and downs along the way, and it's taking that longer term view of it, I think. So those are probably some of the examples. And then looking across Europe, Spain and Germany in particular, the way they integrate education and football is really, really impressive. And then looking at other sports within the UK, how there's lots of studies that recognise the value of having another interest alongside your football and how that can support you in your football development. So, yes, love the game and really train lots and enjoy playing, but also making sure you have opportunities to take some time away from football and help develop yourself as a wider person, because you're not just a football player. You're many different things, and it's important that you develop all different parts of your personality and interests as well.
100%. I really agree with that. And actually, with my own son being at Arsenal, it's the main stuff that I wanted to hear from them, really, that they look as the whole round individual rather than just Charlie the footballer or Mark the footballer or Neil, So I love the way that the game's moved on over the years and progressed. So I'm really pleased. Guys, we've had a few more people join us. We've got Neil Saunders here, head of youth for the Premier League. We might have time for maybe one, maximum 2 questions. So if you want to chuck them in the comments, I'll try my best to get through them. So how do you see the game developing in the next couple of years, or maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years? How do you, obviously on the youth side of things for yourself?
In terms of how we develop young players?
Yeah.
I think, it's recognising that, I guess how we were coached however many years ago, not to make it sound too old, but the younger generation are different. It's a different environment. So just take technology, for an example, the technology that's available to support development, whether that be performance analysis or access to watching YouTube clips of the best players around the world. I think there will definitely be more use of technology to support development of players. And then I think really, there's lots of studies again about individuals taking ownership of those development. And if you really understand it, then you learn at a better rate. So I think more individualized coaching that focuses more on the individual needs of each player rather than just focusing on the team. So I think individualized coaching and focusing on the needs of each player, and then technology will no doubt be play a big role going forward as well. Perfect.
Thanks, Neil. I've got a couple more questions. This one we talked about curveballs. This is not a curveball, but how do the different academies, how they differ throughout the country? Do they differ? Are they all kind of very similar, just a slight different thing here from a Man U to a Chelsea, different parts of the country? I don't know. Is there different kind of philosophies through a coach up north and down in the Southern Territories? How does it work?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we there's a framework, a set of rules that all academies sort of sign up to in terms of how they work with their players. And at the foundation, if you like, and the most important part is around the safety and the environment that the players come into. So we have lots of rules in place around safeguarding how we protect those environments for our young players. We actually work with Bernardo's, and they carry out independent audits of our clubs to make sure that the standards are in place are appropriate for the young players. So I guess that's the foundation part, and then there's some wider rules about the number of hours that clubs can coach players per week, and and the access to games and the type of facilities they have. But then within that, there is flexibility for clubs to work in the way that they think is appropriate for their players. So, one club will have a very different coaching philosophy and the way they want to play and develop players to another club. We do categorise our academies. So there are 4 across the 92 clubs, professional clubs, or 91 at the moment. There are 4 categories of academies. So category 1 being the highest level, and we have 24 category 1 academies at the moment, of which a number of the Premier League clubs will be a category 1 academy. Arsenal being one of those, and the expectations of what those clubs have in place are slightly higher than the category 2s and 3s, and some of the differences will be around the investment that they're able to make into their academy, the numbers of full-time staff and the different qualifications that they'll be required to have across the board, and then the facilities that they will have available to help train and coach the young players. So those are some of the differences in how we work, and then our role is to monitor that work, but also support our clubs to help improve their programs.
Perfect. Thanks, Neil. Just had a couple of kind of comments in about the education and careers are far from over just because you've not made it to the Premier League, and it's great that we're talking about the different roles in football, because we just kind of covered a couple off the top of our head, but there's limitless, probably thousands of roles that you can be involved in the game, in and out of the game, but that's not taken away from anyone that your dream that you want to be a footballer, because for me the mindset's the most powerful thing. If you want to kind of, you set something to achieve and you give it all your all and you put the practice in place, and you're going to set yourself up with a chance, but the other side of the game is very important. So for my kind of last question, if we don't get any more questions, Neil, with your experience as a professional footballer, we talked about your previous roles as coaching as well throughout the country, at the Premier League as well, and working with the top academies around the country in all the categories we just talked about. What kind of, and it's not just one point, I'd like you to discuss as much or as little as you'd like. What kind of advice would you say to like the kids from my 6occer academy watching, would kind of set them up in whatever path or route they go? What would be your words of wisdom?
Another good question. I think it's about making sure you're focusing on the areas that you enjoy, and by being part of the academy here, it sort of shows that you've got a passion for football, and I think that's a really sort of amazing thing, that people find what they're passionate about and do the things that motivate them and give them enjoyment, I guess. So hold on to that, and great if there are some opportunities to progress your footballing career, whether that's in professional football or semi-professional, but to keep playing regardless, because that having things that you're passionate about are really really important for your sort of physical and mental health, and obviously all of the benefits that you'll get from playing football in terms of friendship groups that you'll make, learning to work as a team, communication skills, resilience when things haven't gone right for you on the football pitch, but you keep going. Those are all skills that will help you in life in general. So I think it's a great thing football is a great sport for teaching sort of wider life lessons. So I think it would be keep playing football at whatever level that is, and keep enjoying it and keep trying to get better, because pursuit is a really positive thing as well, the pursuit of improvement and self-improvement. So keep playing, keep enjoying it, and keep trying to get better.
Perfect. And we've done a few interviews now with some kind of various professionals, Premier League boys that come back against adversity, and the number one thing has been enjoyment. You have to enjoy, and I think that's the real benefit of my career. I look back on my career personally, I think there's a lot of kind of ways that I think of it, but my main thing is that I feel fortunate to do something that I loved, really. At the end of the day, if I break it all down, I played football for the love, and I enjoyed it, and that ultimately was my driver that I would then bounce off of the things I wanted to achieve from the back of it. So thanks very much, mate. We've got one question I've picked out. So I know the answer from my son at Arsenal, because he was told from day one, but we've got, at what age the young players, and I'm guessing to you, Neil, again with your experience of all the clubs, and we've talked about it being kind of certain rules set in place, so all the clubs are off the same hymn sheet with certain things. But I've been asked, at what age do players get kind of mentioned or told or talked about other careers and offer further education? When I was young, this guy was at Fulham as a kid. When I was young, many moons ago, they had an obligation at 16 years old. How's it differ now?
Yeah, another good question. Thanks for that. The I guess the full-time football, if you like, or the apprenticeship starts at 16. So that life skills and the wider career opportunities is a formal part of that program. But we recognise the opportunities we have and the responsibility we have to make sure that we're working with clubs and clubs are working with their players to make sure that they understand some of the wider opportunities that exist outside of football. As we know, there's only so many players can become professional footballers. But what we try to get across in terms of the academies, and I know academies communicate with their players regularly, is actually there is a value in being in the academy at whatever age it is that you leave, because so, as I said earlier, some of the wider skills that you develop through playing football really can benefit you going forward, and also some of the experiences. So, Mark, at Arsenal, the players are really fortunate to be able to go on a number of trips and other experiences that whilst it focuses on the football, it provides a good footballing experience. We hold a tournament each year in Belgium for the under-12 age group, and there's a big focus on holistic development right through the programme. So using every football tournament to provide the boys with, yes, a high level of football competition, but also taking the opportunity to identify more broader development opportunities. So the tournament I spoke about that takes place in Belgium, the boys spend a day before the tournament visiting some of the memorial sites and war sites across that were used in the First World War to guess understand a bit more about our history and what's taken place before them. Because yes, they go and play against teams from Belgium and Germany and France. That's an amazing footballing experience for them. But actually, they come home and they're really talking about the wider experiences they've had and what they've learned about the First World War and the sacrifices that people have made before them. And I think that's something that we work really hard and clubs work really hard to with their players to make sure that we're taking that responsibility seriously and developing our young players as young people as well, and not seeing them just as football players.
Perfect. Yeah, no, myself personally as well. So I played football for 25 years professional, so I was lucky to go right to the end. But my son now in a professional academy, I love the fact that they were trying to develop him as a person. So I feel I've never pressured my own child to go the route that I did. I'm not bothered either way, to be honest. But he's got to have his journey, and I think even if he's released in a year, 2 years, whatever it may be, he's had some experiences for life. He's got friends for life. There's so many benefits to being involved in the academy rather than just, are you going to make it as a footballer? So I'm loving what you guys, obviously leading from the top, Neil, are doing, because again, I've seen firsthand the kids buzzing when they come back from a trip. It might be a little tour. It's just a great learning experience. I've got one last question, mate, which is, I'm guessing parents, kids, they're loving this talk about education, by the way. So you personally, I know the clubs do, because my own experience, and obviously I look after a lot of players in the professional clubs and work closely with their parents. How do you keep in touch with the schools, and do they report back to you, or is this something that goes to the clubs in terms of how their grades are going at school as well? Because I know obviously parent Arsenal this is massive for them now, that you have to be getting your grades. They communicate with the schools the whole time as you get older, and then grades have to be coming in and taking your education seriously to even get on the football pitch, So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We introduced, or a new way of working youth development was introduced, called the Elite Player Performance Plan, sort of eight years ago. And one of the benefits for clubs and for young players is that they would have more opportunities and more access to work with them and to coach them. but with that comes increased responsibility around making sure that that doesn't have any negative impact on their academic progression. So within our rules, we have mechanisms in place to make sure clubs are speaking to the schools, as you say, and tracking the boys' progression. You know, in secondary school where we have Progress 8, you can track what the boys should be achieving and then where they get to. And clubs are so much more aware, I think, than ever before around how they support those players. So specifically in, you know, the GCSE age groups, we will work with clubs to put specific interventions in place if boys aren't on track, or to help them, you know, get above what their predicted grades are, to make sure that they're supported, because, you know, the elite young sort of football players will be juggling lots of different things. They'll be, you know, playing football and they're trying to perform at school as well. So that's something that is taken really, really seriously, and we've seen some really positive outcomes from that. You know, on average, our boys perform above the national average in terms of GCSE grades, so they're doing really well.
Brilliant, brilliant. I didn't really plan to turn it into an educational lesson, but I'm glad we covered them topics because it's such an important side of the game. Thanks, Neil, for sharing your story, your journey, how you kind of overcome adversity through, obviously, your plan was to be a professional footballer. Unfortunately, I know too well as well with knee injuries how seriously they are. But that didn't knock you back, and the amazing journey you've made to be in the role you are and doing the amazing work you are. So well done on that, and thank you for sharing your journey, mate.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, mate, and I'm sure I'll speak to you soon. And thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks, everyone. Thank you.
See you later, Neil.